Welcome to Born or Made, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of success and identity. Are the traits that define us as leaders ingrained from birth, or are they carved out throughout our experiences? Join your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, as we ask these questions to some of the most insightful and inspiring entrepreneurs of our time. Each episode, we explore their journeys, the decisions that shaped them, and how they've molded their own paths to success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply curious about the interplay between nature and nurture in professional growth, you're in the right place. Get ready for compelling stories, transformative insights, and a new perspective on what it really takes to make it in the world of entrepreneurship.
Hello and welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. I am your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, and with me today, I have such an exciting guest. I have the lovely Karen Yankovich. She is the LinkedIn Evangelist and also the host of the Good Girls Get Rich podcast. I'm so excited to have her here today. So Karen, I know how great you are and what you're doing, but for anyone that might not, would you mind taking just a few minutes and tell us more?
Yeah, sure. Anne-Marie, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be a part of your show here. So, it's interesting. I was just saying to Anne-Marie before we started recording that I did an interview before this with a student of mine who has a new podcast. And we talk about LinkedIn. Of course, people join the world. The work that I do is really to help women use LinkedIn and PR to have more impact and influence and income. And we talked about the fact that we had met less than a year ago, like May, like less than a year ago. And in that year, when she hired me, she was just saying, all right, I have this message. I got to put my big girl panties on. I got to invest and get some help. Like she had done none of this stuff yet. She just launched. She's been part since then in that. And this is exactly like, if you ask me what I want from the people I work with, this is exactly it. She used LinkedIn to kind of find the kinds of people that can elevate her brand, to position herself. She's so brilliant. She positioned herself with using her strengths and started to build a brand for herself. And she has been, I'm going to say she's probably been on 30 or 40 podcasts in the past year. Her own book just came out this week. She's been part of 2 collaborative books. She's working on a TED Talk. She's getting paid to speak. She had never been paid to speak before. This is what we do. We take women who want their next chapter to look different than their last chapter. And like, I like to say, we like throw you in a phone booth and have you coming out looking like Superwoman on the other side, right? Like it's hard to do this yourself. It's hard to see yourself as other people see you. So we can see you, how we know you can be seen. So we try to pull that out in you. We use LinkedIn to showcase all of that with your profile. But really it's about stepping into your next chapter, with the credibility and the accolades and the opportunities that you deserve to have. And that's what we do. That's what I do.
That's great. So
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
LinkedIn is your jam.
It is. Yes, it is.
So I want to talk about LinkedIn, but more about you and how you sort of got to
sure.
LinkedIn. But I really want to know why LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has a bad rep. I'm sure you've heard that before, right? I know for me, when I'm pivoting from the real estate space to my own company marketing and such. Mm-hmm. So when I was in the real estate space in LinkedIn, I would get just bombarded with, can I have your buyers, with mortgage officers and insurance people just wanting my business. So there wasn't a lot of genuine connection there. So you're finding that a lot different, because I think that's where all the connection is.
It's right? Yeah. It's so funny because when you said LinkedIn has a bad rap, I'm like, oh, she's hanging out with the wrong people. And I say that because of course that's happening, but it's happening on all the platforms, right? Sure, on LinkedIn, when the question I usually have for people when they say, oh, my inbox is just full of spam is, well, when was the last time you sent a message to anybody? And normally they go, well, I don't send messages. I'm like, well, then of course it's full of spam. It's full of inbox, people just messaging you, trying to sell you their stuff, right? And listen, LinkedIn's trying to do a better job with that, but at the heart of LinkedIn, it's virtual networking, which number one, who doesn't need to do a better job at that in the world we're in now, right? We've learned that we can network with people all over the world, so that's continuing. And it's where, when I ask people, what their biggest opportunity, like what's the biggest opportunity you ever had, right? And then they'll tell me, and where did that come from? 99 out of 100 times they say, well, a referral,
Mhm.
right? Not an Instagram post, not a tweet, right? So LinkedIn is where referrals happen. So if most of your big opportunities come from referrals, then let's make referrals repeatable by building out our network authentically, not by spamming people. I truly never ever, there's never a reason to do any cold outreach on LinkedIn, and the processes that I teach, show how to do that. And then you're just meeting the kinds of people that can change your business and your life and your bank account, so that's why LinkedIn. But if I'm going to take it back even further, I am a little bit older than social media, and I've done marketing for years. And the marketing that I've done my whole life has really been about relationships. So when social media became a thing, like I'm going to say like around 2010, I started really diving more into marketing consulting. I've always done technology consulting. I started diving more into marketing consulting, and I started learning all the things, all the platforms, but I was driving people back to LinkedIn because what I knew, and this maybe ties into the theme of your show, what I didn't even know I was learning as I was in technology for, the first bunch of years of my career was, I was often the only woman in the room. So I had to showcase I had to let people had to know, believe that I knew what I was doing, or I was never going to be able to open my mouth. Right. So I learned a skill that I didn't even know I was learning. And that skill is really to showcase myself confidently and with to make a point of letting people know that I know what I'm doing, right? And I had to do that in the original career that I was in. So when I started driving people to LinkedIn, I'm like, yeah, people care about your post, but what they care about is you. They want to know that they're doing business with the best in the business, and it's on you to show that. So even though I was doing general marketing in general, I was kind of driving people to LinkedIn because I felt like LinkedIn is where they needed to start. Because even if, like, they come to me and they say, all right, I make this great pen, and the pen is a great brand. It's purple and blah, blah, blah. Right. Like, okay. But if all the personal brands behind the making of this pen are strong, it immediately strengthens the business brand. So we need to start focus on the people behind the business, and then we can start to market the brand of whatever it is you're marketing. Right.
Right.
So because that was where I started to focus people, I just eventually, and as I learned how to do this, as I learned marketing, I learned the importance of niching, and how, frankly, if I focused on LinkedIn, I didn't really need to know or care what's happening on the other platforms. I didn't need to
Right.
be
Right.
on top of everything. I just needed to be good at one thing. So that's kind of what led me to focus on LinkedIn, because I just knew the power of relationships. At the end of the day, I've always known that, and I've also always understood that, the importance of showcasing my own personal brand in my success. So those are the things that I brought with me to this world that I'm currently been in for the last 10, 15 years.
Right. Right. And I love that. And I love your stance on women lifting up women supporting women. So what was it that, because I'm guessing in your coaching and in your teaching, you're not just servicing women, right?
Right,
You have men
exactly.
too, right?
Of
So
course. And I don't really care what your body parts are or how you identify. I just think women need to feel more included on LinkedIn and with these strategies. And I think that, I so that's really why I focus on women. There's not a lot of people out there helping women with LinkedIn, and I just felt like they were leaving. It's where the money is, it's where the opportunities are. And it can be simple. It's not a lot. It doesn't take a lot. It just takes a strategy and a little confidence and a little mindset work to overcome imposter syndrome, as I start positioning you as if your peers, with the most influential people in your industry. Um, so yeah, there's studies that show things like, if there's a job opportunity out there and there's 10 requirements for the job, a man will apply for that job if he has 3 of them. A woman needs 11 before she'll apply for that job, right? So I think women are leaving money on the table. We're missing opportunities, and I want to showcase them more.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's really why Yeah, it's really why I do this. I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine recently. Hopefully, if you're listening, it's okay. I won't say your name. But she was recently laid off from a big job that she's had. She'd made good money. She's got tons of credibility in her mid 50s. So she's got years and years of credibility. And she had on her resume something about, like, she completed 2 years of college. I'm like, take that off. First of all, who cares? Nobody cares. Like, why would you put anything on there that has anything other than position you? And even on your LinkedIn profile, like, you are, I'm going to call her Mary Smith. You are Mary effing Smith, like people know you, right? Like you're doing this so that you can build relationships from this, but you're not using this. Like nobody's hiring you because of the skills you're putting on LinkedIn. So you need to create a brand on LinkedIn to let people know how amazing you are. There's a lot of things probably that you've done that probably number one, you forgot you've done. And number two, people don't know you've done. So we need to showcase your brand. So when you're building your next chapter, you're doing it from that position of power, not from the position of let me put my resume in the stack of everybody else's resumes. Does that
Right.
make sense? And that like so that's kind of what I want for all of the women that are listening today. I want you to understand that there's opportunities for us, but we have to create them sometimes. And we can.
I love that. I love that so much. I want to ask you though, what would you say about Alignable versus LinkedIn? Do you use Alignable at all, or?
It's so interesting. So my business coach uses Alignable and he's kicking me in the butt to use it more. And I will say this, I think Alignable has a lot more engagement than LinkedIn.
Okay.
But what I don't like about Alignable is that there is no way to do exactly what I just said. There's no way to make you stand out from the crowd.
Okay.
So on Alignable, everybody is peers with everybody else. And there's benefits to that.
Yeah.
But I can tell you there's a lot of when I've done, I've done both. I've done both. In fact, recently in the last 6 months, I've put a deep dive into Alignable because the challenge posed to me was, why can't you do online Alignable exactly what you do on LinkedIn? The challenge was the quality of the people I was attracting was a different quality of people. And it wasn't even that I need people that are high quality. I was getting people that were just not really looking to do the work. We're really looking for like get rich quick kind of things and weren't really interested in building relationships. So I'm not necessarily dissing Alignable because I think Alignable is really, I love the engagement. There's a lot of good stuff that happens over there. And I still use it, but not as much as I was using it initially, because for my initial test, I just don't know that my audience is necessarily there as much, although I have met some beautiful people there. So I think it's like almost like comparing, Facebook and LinkedIn. They both have their purpose, but they're used differently.
Yeah. And Alignable, correct, isn't that a paid app?
No.
Oh,
you
okay.
could pay. You can pay, but just like you can pay for everything else, but you don't have to pay.
Exactly. Okay, interesting. I'm not using Alignable, so I have no idea what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like for your real estate career, Alignable probably would have been a good choice,
Right.
So
Yeah.
so I think for local businesses, Alignable is probably, I don't know that I would use it instead of LinkedIn. I still think LinkedIn is important, but I think it could be a place where you can market.
So LinkedIn just allows you to brand yourself and be more yourself, showcase yourself rather
Exactly. And you have a profile and you can showcase your profile and you can really, tell the world what it is you want them to know about you.
Okay. All right, cool. Very good. So I want to pivot a little bit here.
Yeah.
And, the whole focus of the show is the question, are we born entrepreneurs or, do we evolve into that entrepreneurial mindset based on decisions and choices we've made in life? So I have to ask you, Karen, are you born or made?
I'm going to say born.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because my entire family are paycheck and pension people. Like I am definitely like, they're like, ooh, what? They don't get me, at all. But I, if I think back, like, you think back to your childhood, if I think back to my childhood, I was the person coordinating carnivals and, built and organizing plays and charging people money to come into my backyard to watch a play. And, I was always that person, so I think when I look back at that, I'm going to have to go with born, but I think I forgot it because then I learned the opposite, right? I learned from my family and I learned, most of my family are teachers and that's what I went to school to be. I was going to be a teacher too. And I just, there was always something else going on. I always had some kind of side gig going on,
I love that you said that. I just want to stop you real quick because just recorded a video last night about, this whole topic. And in the video, I was saying about how my friend and I used to put on shows in our living room and literally turn it into a theater and charge admission to our parents and our friends.
Right.
Charge for lemonade.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to put on like little, I want to say a carnival, but it was more like little games.
Yeah, a carnival. Yeah.
That is so funny. But no,
Yeah,
but I used to
yeah.
try to sell rocks and seashells to the neighborhood.
I remember. Well, I remember. You know what? I remember where one of the places lived when I was a teenager. The kid next door used to come over and sell me rocks all the time, and I bought every one of them. I'm like, dude, that kid's probably a billionaire right now. I should look him up, find out what he's up to. Because he was selling rocks to the neighbors, and we were paying him. But
That
if you're gonna knock on my door and try to sell me a rock, I'm gonna give you $1.
that's awesome. I bet he is doing well now.
Yeah.
Let me go back and touch on how it was interesting how you said that you're definitely born, but then learned the opposite. And I think that's so true, especially, in days before, social media and the digital landscape the way that it is. Even when I was in school, it wasn't about, focusing or nurturing that entrepreneurial spirit. It was, graduate, go get a job,
Yeah.
and punch your time card, and that was what we were taught to do. And so
Right.
I think it's a lot different now because there's so many more opportunities for entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs now with social media and you know the entire digital landscape. So it was interesting that when we were younger, it was suppressed, and now I feel like it's starting to be a little bit more nurtured. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I do agree. I thank goodness, right? But I do agree. I do agree. And I think that there's probably still both, right? There's still plenty of people that don't there's definitely plenty of people that don't understand why anybody would choose to be an entrepreneur. Um and it definitely is something you have to have in you, right? It takes courage. It takes courage to take it to build a business that doesn't give you a paycheck every Friday, or it takes courage somebody said to me one time, when you are working for corporate or wherever, every Friday you wake up and there's money in your bank account, and as an entrepreneur you have to ask for every dollar that comes into your thing, and that right there takes courage, asking people for money for what it is you do, right? So it is definitely you definitely have to have the right temperament, I guess. You have to have it in you. And not everybody does, and that's cool, right? That's what makes us beautiful. That makes us all beautiful. And again, growing up in a family where my family were a lot of teachers, and they didn't understand it. They didn't understand the opportunities that you could have. I'll give you an example. My dad was a high school basketball coach. He was a teacher. When he retired, he was superintendent of schools. And so that was his whole career. He started there when he graduated college. He retired there when he was, whatever, same district. And he was a really good high school basketball coach. His record was something like 450 wins and 6 losses, something insane.
Oh,
And so he started coaching college basketball as an assistant coach. And the head coach of the college basketball team was retiring, and they offered him the job, and he didn't take it.
oh no. Okay.
Because I was in college, my sister was graduating high school, and he had this secure paycheck, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I don't know when I started thinking about it that way. Like, he just didn't I don't know. I don't know why he didn't take the job as the head coach, because he would have had to leave his job, right? It would have had to been full time.
Yeah.
And the security of a paycheck is very overwhelming when you have kids. And so not that my dad didn't have courage. I don't want to say that at all, because it was, it took courage to either side of that decision is a courageous
Right.
decision, I
Sure.
think, right? But that's how ingrained paychecks were and when I grew up, and so when I, started to do my entrepreneurial thing, they definitely didn't understand.
And
And I had to unlearn as much as I had to learn.
how did that start for you, your entrepreneurial journey in adulthood?
Yeah. It started, so I worked with a phone company when I was young. I had kids young, and at one point, um my now ex-husband, he was in sales, so he was kind of more entrepreneurial, I guess, in income. Read unstable. So somebody had to have stable income in the house, right? So that was me. And at one point I don't know what he did, but I said, I'm leaving. I mean, the commute was insane. My kids, I had 4 kids, like, it was nuts. So I had 3 kids at the time. So I left my job, and then a couple weeks later, my boss from the phone company called me and said, that the phone, I was in New Jersey. So Verizon was starting this new agent program, and she knew somebody that was given a contract. And was I interested in some ad hoc work? I'm like, sure, send them, send me their contact info. So I started to work part-time for this company that was given, and it was like the first agent contract Verizon ever gave out. And it was great. It was great, until it wasn't. It was
Yeah.
great. And then the guy that owned the company sold the company, and I didn't really want to work for the guy that bought the company. So I went to Verizon, and this was probably in like the early 90s.
Okay.
So I went to Verizon as this young woman, and I didn't have any experience, and I didn't have anything I needed to get a contract. So I had to find literally an old white guy that had the checks, the boxes, so that I could get the contract. He ended up being an amazing mentor to me. But we opened our own. We opened our own. I was like, I can't stay here and work for this guy. What am I going to do? And I was running I was running this particular program at that point. So I was like, all right, they all knew me, so they were happy to give me a contract. I just didn't check all the boxes.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the beginning of it. And it was kind of it was a stepping stone kind of, because I definitely had a paycheck. I mean, we opened the company, but we quickly had contracts, as I had all the contacts, right? So even though we had to build new ones, because I was, I wanted to make sure that I was, I was in integrity with how I left there.
Yeah.
But then at some point I just said, I really, where the entrepreneurial journey came was when we sold that company, and I went to work I was a consultant. I just kept some of the clients as a consultant. One of my clients hired me part-time, and that became full-time, but I was always had clients on the side. You know what I mean? And but that point, I mean, now I'm divorced. I have kids. I got to pay, who's in college, who needs braces, car insurance in New Jersey is insane for teenagers. So I kind of just did a little of both for a while. But then I got to the point that I just couldn't do both anymore. This is when I started to take on, talk about mostly LinkedIn, and I was being asked to speak all over the world and taking all vacation days to go speak in all these crazy places. And they knew it, and they didn't care. So like I had the ideal situation, but I just had to make a choice at one point. I had to
Yeah.
make a choice. So that's when I kind of went into this full time. And that was probably around like 2012-ish, 2010, 2012.
Really. So how did you make such a name for yourself back then on LinkedIn, that you were getting asked to speak? That's so interesting to me, that was sort of back then a new venture, kind of, right? And then
Yeah.
that's so exciting that
So it's so interesting, Emery, when I remember distinctly, because I just was driving everybody to LinkedIn, right? So like, I need to just spend more time with this. So first of all, I didn't have a lot of LinkedIn connections. So I ended up, I was in a like a sales group kind of thing, and I offered free LinkedIn profile reviews to just people in the group, to just kind of start to get known for this. And but really I was doing it because everybody that I gave a review to had to connect with me, and it got my connections over 500. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's literally how I started, but this is kind of what I teach. Like, I knew what I was doing, right? I just had to establish the credibility, right? If I didn't know, and listen, it's okay to not know what you're doing as long as you know you don't know what you're doing, right? So if there were times that I might have been like, I remember when I owned that sales company, the Verizon agency. I remember walking out of meetings with my salespeople, and they were like, "What did you just tell them we could do?" I'm like, "I don't know, but we got to figure it out." You know what I mean? Like, so like, as long as you knew you could pull it off, like, so you had to have a little. So there was confidence. You had to have some confidence, right? So I knew what I was doing, and I just kind of just started doing it. But when you start getting asked, like when people were asking for social media speakers, right? My name would get thrown out with 400 other names. When
Okay.
people asked for LinkedIn speakers, 400 people said, call Karen. And that was the difference, right? The more you niche, the more you get known for what it is you're doing. And that's really the key to it. I remember remember one of my cousins one time saying to me, like, how did you get known for this? I'm like, honestly, I just started doing it. I like just started doing it, and having the confidence to know that I knew what I was doing, and to also know where I didn't know, like where I needed to get help, right? And that at the end I could deliver what I promised to deliver, right? And that's pretty much where it came from. But remember too, in like 2010, 2012, there wasn't as many influencers as
Yeah.
there are now.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to ask you about. My next question was, tell me a little bit about how it's changed and evolved over the years since 2012.
Yeah. It's so funny because, when I first started doing this work, I actually had an agency where I was doing, like, I had clients and we would do posts for them on whatever platforms they wanted. And I was thinking just this morning, like, I don't have the ability I guess I could have paid somebody to do reels for them and stuff, but like, I don't know how to do that. Like, it was really nice to be able to just learn one platform and do it really well. But at the end of the day, like I said to you earlier, that's where most of my business was coming from. Right. So I knew that I could, you know, there's a place for all of us. As long as you understand where your spot is and stay in your lane. If people come to me and they say, I want to grow, I want to build a membership and I want to charge $15 a person and I want to have 500 people in by the end of the year. I'm not the person to call for that. You know what I mean? That's not my expertise. If you say to me, I want a membership, I got all this stuff, but what I need is to build relationships with joint venture partners that can introduce me to their audiences. Now I could maybe help you out. Right. But, I kind of joke, like, if you want to sell pens,
Mhm.
that's not me. But if you want to get a distributor that wants to buy 10,000 of your pens, I can help you do that. So that's kind of just staying in that lane took some time and again, it also takes courage to say no, right? To say, no, this is not I really can't help you with that. So I just started doing it. And I just started, and I also started doing it for free in some places. There was people that, needed help and I'd jump in and say, let me help you with that in return for a testimonial or return for the experience. Don't be like afraid to do that. I remember when, when I was doing, like, like what people call like discovery calls or breakthrough calls or whatever. I remember at one point in my business doing, like, making a commitment to do like 100 of them in a month or 2 months. And I knew I was learning more than they were learning because I was learning where I could help them,
Yeah, I was
when we'd have these calls. So I was happy to do them because I knew it would help me understand what the need was that was out there and where I fit in.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's so true because in my specialty is I build funnels, right? So
Mhm.
I have built so many free funnels, but each time, not anymore, but back, each time I built one, I learned something new. So
Right.
it was beneficial to me, even though I wasn't getting paid. So I love that. Um,
Exactly, exactly. And I still learn. I'm trying to think of what I did. Just did something recently, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I learned so much from this thing. Like, I'm always learning more. I want to learn more. I take I'm always, and sometimes you learn more the hard way. Like, you turn on LinkedIn and you're like, oh, look at this. I've never seen this before. While you're in a room full of 200 people, you
right.
know. Um,
Yeah, learning the online education space is the best thing in the world to me because I love learning. Just like you
right,
said, I'm always taking courses and classes, and
right, right,
that's so cool to have that available. We didn't have that back when we were younger, so it's so cool.
right.
I wanted to ask you back. You touched on this earlier, but would you say that back in the days that when you were first starting, it was definitely the marketing industry specifically was male dominated?
Um, I think the marketing industry is still male dominated.
Yeah. Okay.
I do. And I say that because it drives me a little crazy. And here's the thing, I don't look at this and say, oh, poor me. Like, that's not the perspective at all. It's more from the perspective of, if I do a JV, I've done a lot of joint ventures over the years. So joint ventures is, you have an audience, I have an audience, let's get together and I'm going to share your webinar to my audience or whatever and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hands down, the biggest ones I've ever done were men. I don't know why that is. It makes me absolutely crazy because the men are no smarter than the women, but somehow they have bigger audiences and somehow their audiences are more engaged and they buy more.
It is true, and I wonder why that
I
is.
don't know why that is either, but so I think that, you know, like when I first started specializing in LinkedIn, Lewis Howes was a LinkedIn expert.
Okay.
Do you know who Lewis Howes is?
I've heard the name, but I'm
Yeah,
not
so he was
sure.
a LinkedIn expert. Now he's like been on Oprah. But he
Oh,
just like kind of threw his name out there as a LinkedIn expert. And there's still people that I think if you say LinkedIn, they go, "Oh, you need to talk to Lewis Howes." I'm like, dude, Lewis Howes hasn't even logged into the LinkedIn profile in 10 years, you know. But for some reason, the men have just more credibility still, and it drives me nuts. Which is why a big part of the work that I do on LinkedIn is not just the strategy, but it's also the credibility. We really focus a lot on publicity, PR. I want you to understand that when you can control how you're seen in the world. And if, and so if you are, um if you are interviewed by somebody, you get to borrow their credibility, right? Somebody listening to me now that has never met me before, they know you, and you say you should listen to Karen, so it gives me some credibility, right? So that's why that's a big part of what we do, is we help women build credibility with media opportunities, because it's one way to build that credibility as you're stepping into that next chapter.
And I love that too, because that eliminates the competitive nature of business.
Well, that's exactly it.
Enough
That's
business
exactly
for,
right.
and I think if we just kind of stick together and
Yes.
I love that. I love that.
Yes, I agree. Like, listen, I'm not looking for 5,000 clients a month, and you're not looking for 5,000 clients a month. So let's just help each other and let it's the ripple where there's opportunities, right? So,
Not only that, but even if we're doing the same thing, that there might be somebody that likes you better than me, or there might be somebody that likes
right,
me than you. You know, it's just
right,
plenty out there to go around.
right, right.
I think there's such a competitive nature in some circles, and I don't.
There
know.
is, and again, even if you think about the marketing stage right now, right? Yeah, there's some big marketing names: Amy Porterfield, Marie Forleo. There's a couple of big names out there of women, but mostly you hear Tony Robbins, Alex Hormozy, right? Like, you hear the big men names, right? They're the ones that are filling stages with 10 million people on them.
Grant Cardone, yeah,
Right, right.
yeah. That'd be so cool to see.
And Elena Cardone, because she's Grant Cardone's wife.
Right.
Right. Like, so, and I don't want no disrespect to Elena Cardone for that. Right. But I don't think we would know her if she wasn't married to Grant Cardone. And that's not any fault of hers. It's just somehow that's still the case right now. So, listen, at the end of the day, what I care about is, you know, show me the money, right? Like, show me the money. If I'm building my business and my business is financially supporting me comfortably, and I can teach you to do the same thing, and more women have more money in the bank, that's how we change the world. Not because we can have a stage with 50 million people on it, right? We can change the world one person at a time by helping one more person have, become wealthy.
I love that. I love that so much. So we have to figure out why it is. That's going to be my mission.
Let me know. Let me know.
It is.
Amory, we can sit here and talk about, listen, and there's so many beautiful things that women have achieved in the last decade, right? Here in the US, we have a woman vice president. We've got, there's so many beautiful things we've achieved. And the gender wage gap in 2019 was a $500 million, 545 trillion, half a trillion dollars, $545 billion for the same job. So there's a study that came out talking about that. That's before the pandemic. I'm going to guess that after the pandemic, that gap's probably widened because more women were responsible for homeschooling their kids and getting the kid to this or that. And, the gender wage gap is still massive. So we can whine about it, or we can look at that as a $500 billion opportunity for us. I like to look at it as I want a piece of that pie.
We can change that. Yeah. Of that. And this is for anyone that's listening. We, of course, are not bashing men at all.
Right. Not at all. Right.
They're great.
Kudos to them for being able to. Right. Right.
Yeah. So I want to kind of pivot a little bit, because I think I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard that you used to do a little bit of dream coaching, or.
Oh, wow. You are digging deep. You are digging deep.
I did my research.
Yes.
I did my research.
Holy crap.
Love to talk about that, because you know what? Like, I seriously thought about doing that myself, because I have the craziest dreams. I tell you, every night I dream like an epic movie in my head. I've always done a little bit of analyzing over the years. So I want you to tell me all about that.
Yeah. Okay. So back when I was finding myself, right, when I was still like I was still at the corporate job, like with, my client that hired me, I still had consulting clients. My kids were getting older. I was taking all the online marketing classes and starting to build this business. I was also got certified in Reiki. I'm a Reiki master, and I took a dream coaching class that Hay House was offering. And it was awesome. It was awesome. And I really, what I found was initially, if I had to really look at the direct path, I would say that I learned the online marketing class stuff so that I could learn how to market like a business where I could do dream coaching or Reiki coaching or something like that. But what I found was my sweet spot was helping those people do it, not being the coach, but being the person helping people that didn't understand their value. Like, so many people in, like, we'll call it like a spiritual based industry, they have this like poverty mentality. And I was like, no, no, no. Like the world needs you. You can't, if you're working at Macy's because you don't want to charge people for your gift, how are you helping the world? Right. So I found myself, that piece right there probably is what led me to doing what I'm doing now more than anything else. But yeah, I got certified in dream coaching. It was so much fun. I will say that I don't spend enough time in my head there now, and I do want to get back to it. In fact, I use Asana for my project management stuff for my programs, and I have an Asana task in there to figure out how to put something in my She's Linked Up Accelerator course, which is
Yeah.
teaches women how to use LinkedIn and PR. I want to do something in there about dream coaching, not because it is less about the dreams and more about your subconscious,
Oh,
right? We have this wise oracle inside of us and we don't trust it. And I don't care what anybody says, there's absolutely energy there that we don't listen to, and that most people, I'm going to generalize here, but most people don't trust in. And that energy it's around us. It's not just like inside of us, it's everywhere. And I learned so many cool things, not just book learned things, but experienced so many cool things when I did some, because part of when you're getting certified as a coach, you got to do the work, right? And
right.
I
Yeah.
learned so many cool things just doing that with groups of people. And I did a couple groups when I started doing this. It was so much fun.
That is so cool. Can you share something cool that you learned?
Yeah. So one of the things I learned was, it was like this little game, right? So we had a group of, let's say, 8 people or 6 people, and I was facilitating the group. And what we basically did was I did double blind raffle. Let's call it a raffle. I put everybody's name in a thing, and you had to pull a name and give it to me. So you didn't know who you had, and you didn't know who your name was, right? So Anne-Marie picks Mary. The only person that knows that Anne-Marie picks Mary is me. Anne-Marie doesn't know she picked Mary, and Mary doesn't know Anne-Marie picked her name, right?
Okay.
So the homework was go home and dream for the person whose name you picked. Now remember, you don't know who you have, right? But just go home and ask when you go to bed at night, say, what does my person need to know? How can I help my person? And this is like it was in person, but we didn't live together, right? So everybody went to their houses. And when they came back, I'll give you a couple of examples. When they came back, so there was one girl that happened to live across the street from me, and she was the first person there. And she's like, Karen, I just pulled in my brand new car. All the lights went out in my car the minute I pulled in the parking lot here. She's like, you might have to drive me home, blah, blah, blah. So it was like, just, I don't know what's going on. Her car was a week old. All the lights went off, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm happy to do that. So one example is when the person who had her name, again, didn't know who they were dreaming for.
Right.
She said, I don't know what's going on, but I just kept dreaming. All I kept seeing was car dashboards and the gas at 0.
Oh.
And like literally like my mouth, and the other person, like I was co-facilitating that. The 2 of us were like, our jaws dropped. And she's like, and I really read this as you're just running your tank on empty and you need to blah, 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 blah. Meantime, like nobody in the room was there. She was the first person there. So this person that had that dream was not in the room when she walked in and said, you might have to drive me home because all of my things are on. All of my things went dead when I pulled into your parking lot here. Like that was like one thing, right? There was a couple of other things. There was one person who had my name, right? And she's like, Karen, and she didn't know who she was dreaming for, right? She's like, all I could think about are potato chips. That's all I could think about. And I started laughing because I was watching Oprah that week. And I remember distinctly Oprah saying, I can conquer the world and I can't conquer a goddamn potato chip. And I was like, I'm with you, Oprah. I'm like high-fiving Oprah across the thing, like had a whole thing. And I started laughing. I'm like, let me tell you what happened this week. Like I was bonding with Oprah over the fact that we can't conquer potato chips. Right. So there was a lot of really cool things like that happened. And from that one exercise. Right.
Yeah.
So there was lots of other things too. But, what I will say mostly though, about what I learned mostly about dream coaching is to trust your own. And that's like, those are like party games, right? Like that's like the fun stuff, but it's not really the work, right? The work really is trust your own intuition and listen to it. Like stuff comes up. Like I used to record my dreams. I had it was before I had an iPhone. So I had a little recorder and I record my dreams and I'd wake up the next morning and I would not even, if it wasn't in my voice, I wouldn't have believed it was me. Do you know what I mean? Like I had no memory whatsoever of what I recorded,
So wake up in the middle of the night.
And I just record a dream. Yep. If I wake up and you had a dream, you just record it quickly and then just go back to sleep.
Oh, I
I
love
had
that.
no memory whatsoever of some of these things, like giving as much detail as you can. And I had on a blue hat and the street sign said Main Street and like whatever, just to dump it out of your brain. If it wasn't, I wouldn't have known I wouldn't have believed it if it wasn't in my voice. Like that's how crazy things happen while we're sleeping. But, I think that as entrepreneurs, right? We don't understand we have this amazing tool within us. And that's something I think we need to remember, like, go to bed at night and ask for an answer.
Yeah.
And it'll come. It will come to you. And we know this, that's why they have things like sleep on it. And, it makes a difference. We have this beautiful, amazing oracle inside of us that we just don't trust. And when we learn how to trust it, and that's what I meant when I said earlier, I don't spend enough time there. I don't do enough of this right now. And I've
Yeah.
been
Right.
meaning to. I really want to do that. So yeah, so that's how I started. It was a lot of fun. It's
Bet.
not something I ended up continuing with, but and the other thing too that I will say is, speaking of kind of like party tricks, the other thing I learned that was really important was people say like, and you can see I have a million books behind me. There's probably
Yeah.
10 of them on dream interpretation up there somewhere. The reality is you do a better job of interpreting your own dreams than somebody can guide you. But like, let's say you're dreaming about an apple. I don't know if that means to you, your first grade teacher, your computer, good health. Like, I don't know what an apple means to you. Right.
Right.
So if a book says an apple means this, I'm not going to say it's bullshit, but it's,
Yeah.
like you have to take it, you have to understand that, like, what does it mean when I keep dreaming about a horse? Well, I don't know. What does a horse mean to you? Right. If you look up, what does it mean when you have a horse in your dream? That's not necessarily what it means to you. Right.
Right.
You have to think
Right.
about, what do you think it means? You know what I mean? And probably you're right, so that's the only thing I would leave people with on that, is that we want to go to somebody, and that's, one of the reasons, I mean, not really one of the reasons, but that's one of the reasons why I really didn't move forward, because it wasn't, people wanted me to interpret their dreams, and that's not what this is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's not what this is. It's
What-
more about learning how to you interpret your own dreams and how to use your subconscious
I love
to,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
Because they're not literal. I mean, a dream will never
right,
be literal. You have to figure out. That's what I love
right.
about it, is trying to figure out, what did that mean? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And really thinking about, like, what does it mean to you? What do you think it means? And you're probably right. Whatever you think it
Yeah.
means, you're probably right. And then, but that's why writing it down is interesting, because then you can kind of look at the journal of it, and say, oh wow, I talked about this then and this there. How does that work together? So that's
Yeah.
why it's kind of cool when you record your dreams, having a dream journal or
I'm
something.
gonna start doing that. The recording. I used to have a dream journal, but I stopped in the middle of the night wanting to write and stuff. So
Yes,
I like the
exactly.
idea of the recording. Are you a vivid dreamer?
Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not.
Yeah,
I find myself, I also have, an Apple Watch that tracks my sleep and all that stuff now.
I,
And
same
I
one.
find that the less, if I don't sleep deep, I remember more of my dreams, but the deeper I sleep, the less I remember my
Yeah,
dreams.
yeah,
Like, I'll wake up and if I look at my watch and I'll be like, oh, you just had a couple hours of sleep, but none of it was deep sleep. That's when I tend to remember my dreams. When I've had, like, when I wake up after 6 hours of what my watch says is deep sleep, I don't remember as much. But
yeah,
you can also work on all these things. Like, it's all things that you can absolutely work on.
yeah. Oh, that's so cool to me. When I heard
I'm
that,
so happy. I'm so fun. I'm so glad we're talking about this, because this is fun. This is
yeah,
going
I
to be
love it.
fun to share when it comes out.
I feel bad, like, because some people don't dream at all. My boyfriend is one of them. They
He
dream.
does. He
Remember
doesn't
his
know
dream
it. He
ever.
doesn't know he does. He does, but he doesn't know he
Yeah.
does.
So
Yeah.
that's
You can go without we literally cannot go without sleeping because of dreaming. And I don't remember all the statistics on it now, but I mean, I knew it when I was teaching it. But we will lose, you'll go crazy. You will lose your mind if you don't sleep and dream.
that is so interesting. Like, I want to go down that road, but like really,
Yeah. And I'm not the person to go down that road with, because I don't really know it
that's
as
so
well, but go down that road and then let me know where it lands you. And I'm
it's
happy
like what is actually happening to the brain while you're dreaming. That's so
right.
interesting. But yeah, that's
Right.
cool stuff. That's the whole, rabbit hole. So anyway, at the end of we're getting close to the end here, but I want to say at the end of every episode, I ask a few questions that are sort of rapid fire questions, just to kind of get to know you a little bit more. So the first one I'm going to ask you is, what book has been the best information or inspiration in your business or your career?
Oh gosh, there's so many of them, but the default one that I come back to is a Hal Elrod book, The Miracle Equation.
Hmm.
Not even the Miracle Morning book, The Miracle Equation, which was his subsequent book to his big book, The Miracle Morning. And
Right.
because basically it just talks about pick one thing and just freaking do what you got to do to make it work. You know what I mean? Like I almost always have the book on my desk or handy, but then I mail it to somebody and then I have to buy another one. But it's something like, this work plus this equals inevitable success. And that's really what I want people, like, we do so many things and we do so many things that don't matter. If you know exactly what you want, like, just focus on that and put all your energy and all your focus on that. And that's what I talk about. Like, don't come to me if you want to buy a pen, but if you want to get a distributor for 100,000 pens, let's talk, because then when you get $100,000, I can help you hire somebody to do all the things that you think you need to be doing, because focus on the $100,000 distributor first. And Hal
Yeah,
Elrod's book helps with that.
that's great. Okay. So next is, what major decision in your life, if any, would you change if you could?
Amory, there's a lot of things I would like to say. Um, I might regret how they ended, but I don't necessarily live with regrets on how the decisions that I made. So
Uh,
I'm going to say we do the things we think we need to do at the time. And,
and
here we are.
we end up where we're supposed to be anyway, in my opinion. So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly. I agree with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then last one is, if you could go back and tell your young self something, what would it be?
Oh boy, it comes to confidence. It comes to confidence. A couple months ago, I went to College of New Jersey,
Okay.
and a million years ago, and I have a doctor whose office is near the College of New Jersey, so I went to the campus and I drove around the campus, and I just thought about, like, 18-year-old Karen being there, and just, would 18-year-old Karen, it could 18-year-old Karen even conceive of a million-year-old Karen driving around this campus in this sweet little Mercedes with these beautiful, amazing clients, and building a life and a world that exactly like, I don't think I would have believed it to be true. I thought I was going to be a teacher, so, and nothing wrong with teachers, right?
Sure.
But I just think life is going to, there's so much there for us, and we can create it. And like we talked about earlier, I think young women now do understand that more and can create the life and the business that, a business that supports their life, or a job that supports the life that they want. I didn't know I could do that when I was 18 or 20. And I'm so happy that I figured out how to do that. And, I'm doing with my grandkids now things I wasn't able to do with my kids.
Oh, that's great. How many kids do you have?
4.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think you said that earlier. So you grew up in New Jersey. You're not far from me. I'm
Uh,
actually in Boston,
oh, okay. Okay.
another East Coast girl. You do not have a Jersey accent, though, I will say.
It really, I don't think that I would believe that if anybody else said that to me.
Yeah,
And nor do you have a Boston accent. So I wouldn't have guessed that you're from Boston. So there you
I
go.
worked. I worked very hard to get rid of my Boston accent.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, no, I actually, I've done the Boston Conference of Women a bunch of times. So I've been up to,
You
I have a
really?
lot of, yeah, that was one of the first LinkedIn gigs I got. And
Oh,
one of my first big clients came from somebody tapping me on my shoulder at the Boston Conference for Women.
oh, that's awesome. Well, next time you're in Boston, let me know.
I will.
So tell me, Karen, what is next for you? Do you have anything coming up that we should know about?
Yeah. Yeah, I will say this. We've talked a lot about online marketing, and we talked a lot about, I haven't really talked about this specifically, but I want to kind of circle to where I think what's working now is what worked 50 years ago. We're seeing a lot of people now, not that funnels don't work, funnels do work, and social media does work, but good old fashioned marketing is still what works, human to human marketing, people talking to people and people building relationships. So I'm actually looking to double down on that this year. We're looking to put more, in-person salespeople around the country. We're looking to do more in-person events around the country, little networking events. So if you want to host one, or somebody listening wants to host a little She's Linked Up networking event, we'd love to be there. We're doubling down on in-person this year and next year, because I think that even though I'm not saying the other stuff doesn't work, this is where I know we can have success. So I want to remind people that this still exists. This still exists. The
Yeah,
in-person stuff that we've built our businesses on for 100 years still works.
and that's so true. And even just picking up the phone,
Yes.
I mean, I can't tell you, like, my phone never rings anymore. And I'm guilty of it too.
I know. I
Oh,
know. Me too.
know the number, you don't answer it. Back in the day, you didn't know who was calling you. So you answered the phone. You know what I mean?
I know. I know. I know. It's, so I just think that, yeah, that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to double down on where we're putting our money where our mouth is, and if good old fashioned marketing works, what does it look like to build a business using good old fashioned marketing? And by the way, I'm not saying I mean, we still have the beautiful platforms like LinkedIn and all these other platforms to give ourselves, the credibility. I still have a podcast that I can promote to millions of people, right? Due to the beauty of social media. So it's not like not like we're abandoning that. It's more like we're just doubling down on this to remind people that this stuff, that's still where some big opportunities can happen for you.
Yeah. The power is in the relationships.
Yep, it's timeless and it works, and it's where the biggest contracts are signed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, yep. Karen, it has been so awesome chatting with you today. This
It's been a lot of fun.
was
Thanks for going down the dream path. That was fun.
I couldn't wait to ask you about it. So, yeah. All right. Well, good luck in your next venture or whatever it is.
Thanks so much, Emery, and good luck with this show and what you're doing. I'm so glad your message is getting out to more people.